Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Brick Productions. Today's video is going to be, I wouldn't say highly requested, but it's a question that has been asked to me many times in the past. What is my favorite Star Wars movies from worst to best? And that's what we're going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be ranking my favorite Star Wars movies from worst to best. Now, before I get into this list, I want to make it very clear. I am going to name some movies off that you guys aren't going to agree with. Everybody has different opinions. Now, I think my list is pretty relatable to most Star Wars fans, but of course not everybody has the same opinion, so I may like a movie that you just absolutely hate, and I may hate a movie that you absolutely love. But there's no hard feelings there, and to be quite honest, I don't really hate any Star Wars movie. I enjoy every single one, but there's just some that I dislike more than others. So I wouldn't say I necessarily hate any of the Star Wars movies because I am a Star Wars fan, so I support the franchise and I will support the movies. But there are movies that I do dislike or I disagree with kind of the direction that they were put towards in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with my list. We're going to start from the worst movies or the most disliked movies of my list at the bottom. We're going to work all the way up to my favorite movies. So, coming in at number 11 would be The Attack of the Clones. This is probably my most disliked movie. I just can't really find myself watching it that much. And the reasons why is just poor dialogue in the movie. It's just the typical prequel trilogy stuff. Just the bad dialogue. There's some questionable acting sequences in there, and it's just generally, honestly, guys, just kind of a boring movie. There's not really much going on with the movie. I mean, the Jango Fett scene was cool, with Obi-Wan fighting Jango Fett. Kamino, probably my favorite part. Visually of the movie is probably my favorite part, seeing all the clones and stuff, and it's just an interesting planet. But another thing that really just kind of irritates me about the movie is the movie's literally called Attack of the Clones. And the clones don't even come out to the very end of the movie, and we've only seen maybe 5 minutes of runtime of the clones. Now, granted, the Clone Wars TV series did help Attack of the Clones, in my opinion, and really just saved the prequels, because I think without the Clone Wars TV series, the prequels would just be completely in disarray, as most of those movies in the prequels are pretty bad. Alright, next up, coming in at number 10, now this one's probably the most controversial one, and I'm almost afraid to even name this one off. It's gotta be The Last Jedi. Number 10, The Last Jedi, I did not like that movie. Really mainly because it just didn't feel like it fit in the Skywalker saga. I just didn't feel like it kind of jived with everything else. And there was just some weird stuff in there, man. I mean, you know, with the whole Leia floating in space thing, kind of looking like Mary Poppins. Now, granted, The Rise of Skywalker did make that a little bit better. I will say The Rise of Skywalker did make The Last Jedi a better movie, and honestly, The Last Jedi was probably my least favorite movie before The Rise of Skywalker came out. So yeah, The Last Jedi just wasn't good. The story wasn't good. The whole Canto Bight thing was just kind of unnecessary. We had a lot of unnecessary characters that didn't really make sense. There was, you know, character arcs that could have been treated better. The crate battle was visually cool, but I feel like that could have been executed better. I honestly think Finn should have died at the end of the battle, because it would have just made that movie so much more deep and dark. So, you know, there's things that I disagree with. Of course, people like the movie, and that's fine. If you love the movie, more power to you. I'm happy that you love the movie. You came out more satisfied than I did out of the movie theater. All right, coming in at number 9 is going to be The Phantom Menace, Episode 1. We're going back to the prequels. Now, The Phantom Menace, I'm not really going to explain into depth too much why I dislike that movie, because it's very similar to why I dislike Attack of the Clones. Bad dialogue, however, there was some characters in there that I absolutely loved from The Phantom Menace. Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn. Of course, again, Darth Maul, absolutely awesome, one of my favorite Sith, one of my favorite bad guys of all time. But that leads me into another thing. Darth Maul, man, I just kind of wish he was around in the prequels more. He didn't really say much in The Phantom Menace. He was just kind of like that baddie dude that was just kind of hunting, you know, the good guys down. And I feel like they could have handled him better. but he's still badass. I mean, he's just so cool. And of course, the Clone Wars, they did bring him back, so that helps, as well as Rebels. Maul did get a lot of, kind of a revival in these kind of standalone stories. The pod racing scene was awesome. The Naboo battle, I liked how there was like 4 different arcs between like the battle on the ground, and you had like the space battle, and then you had the Duel of Fates, and you had the battle in the palace. There was just so much going on. I really liked how I felt like that was handled well. Trying to go between 4 different story arcs in one battle sequence. So I thought that was handled well. So there are things that I like in the Phantom Menace, and there's things that I dislike in the Phantom Menace, mainly because of execution. I felt like was kind of lacking in the Phantom Menace. But I do think that there are things in the story that was good. All right, next, coming in at number 8 is going to be The Rise of Skywalker. Now, again, this one can be controversial. Overall, I think it was a good movie. I didn't think it was bad. There are things that it's kind of relatively lower to my list, though. Number 1, I felt like it was extremely rushed, and I think it was rushed mainly due to The Last Jedi. Just the utter disaster of that movie. I felt like that was the reason why Rise of Skywalker was rushed, because like the first half, you didn't even know what was going on. It was just so fast. Like, Lando's here, Rey's here, Kylo's here, but now Kylo's here. It was hard to keep up with the Rise of Skywalker. There was characters that I felt like should have had more runtime. Originality was lacking in the Rise of Skywalker as well. I felt like they used a lot of stuff that was used in past movies, especially the Return of the Jedi. So I felt like they could have really just changed up the originality a little bit more. The whole Palpatine thing coming back is a little weird. I feel like they could have, explained that a little bit more. Because like in the opening crawl, it's just like the dead speaks, Palpatine's back. They just didn't really explain into depth on how Palpatine was back, and I don't know. I felt like the Rise of Skywalker could have been a lot better. Next movie coming in at number 7 is Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Overall, I thought it was a good movie. It's fun to watch. I still watch it from time to time. It was kind of the movie that brought back Star Wars after the prequels. So I thought that it was a good movie. The only thing that I really don't like about the movie is the originality issue. Again, kind of the same issue with The Rise of Skywalker. Interesting enough, it's the same directors, J.J. Abrams. So, I don't know. The originality is just not... It's basically a copy and paste of A New Hope. I'm not going to go into the whole thing of how it's a copy and paste. But it's basically a copy and paste of A New Hope. So just watch, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch A New Hope, then watch The Force Awakens, and you'll come out being like, oh yeah, it is kind of similar. So, not a terrible thing, but I felt like there could have been more originality. And coming in at number 6 is A New Hope. Now, this one is relatively lower compared to everybody else's. Of course, this is the movie that started it all. This is the movie that came out in 1977. It's the one that pretty much had the birth of Star Wars, the birth of every single character that has been made, whether it's Legends or canon, has originated from this movie. It is the core piece of the tree of Star Wars. So this movie is just a historical landmark, really, in the filming industry. So, I mean, it for that reason, it is a great movie. But there is boring parts in the movie that I'm not really a big fan of. There's some dialogue stuff. Interesting enough, there is dialogue issues in the movie, kind of like the prequels. There's just some odd things that, like, Princess Leia says or Luke says. So I think that's the reason why it's 6. It's relatively lower than most of the movies, and maybe surprising to you guys why A New Hope is lower. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Solo. Now, Solo, you could argue, was just a unnecessary movie. We didn't really necessarily need it, and that is true. It's a true argument. No, we didn't really need it, but I'm glad we got it, because at first I was really doubting this movie. I was like, oh no. It was coming out after Last Jedi. I was like, oh crap, we're going to have another bad movie. But Ron Howard pulled through, man. It was such a good movie. It's just a fun adventure. And I think that's why I like it so much. It's just one of those movies that you can just kick back, relax, and just really embark on the journey, you know, that Han and Chewie, and you get to see the story of Han and Chewie originate. Really, the story of Han Solo starting up is just really cool. I think it adds a lot more to Han Solo, a lot more, and it makes you appreciate him more, just the general character. And I felt like the acting was so good in that movie, especially for who the actors were trying to portray, like Harrison Ford. That's tough. I mean, that's a tough role to take up, because Han Solo, you could argue, is one of the most iconic characters ever. So that's gotta be a tough responsibility, and I think it was handled very, very well. Of course, the Mimban scene, the whole Mimban arc was absolutely amazing. I had to make a mock of it. You guys remember that? And it actually is my most successful Lego series, or mock building series, on my channel. Now, coming in at number 4, this one is also controversial. It's gonna be the Revenge of the Sith. Now, before you rip me apart in the comment section of, oh my god, I can't believe you ranked Revenge of the Sith higher than A New Hope. There is a good reason why I rank Revenge of the Sith higher. I do agree, there is bad dialogue in it, there is some questionable acting in the movie, and it does have its issues, especially with CGI. However, the actual story itself is so good. It is the darkest Star Wars movie, and you know, when you see shows like Game of Thrones, for example, they're not afraid to kill off main characters. Revenge of the Sith did that. They killed off main characters. They basically killed off Anakin Skywalker. I mean, he just pretty much, you know, turned into Darth Vader. I mean, he's still around technically, but the spirit of Anakin Skywalker is basically gone. So they did kind of kill that off. They killed off Padme. You know, Obi-Wan was just broken after that whole thing. Basically the entire Jedi Council was wiped out. So it's just, it's still like, after I've seen that movie well over 100 times, easy, it's still tough to watch it, especially the Order 66 scene. And I think it's got my favorite lightsaber duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan. I think that's the best one. There are some really good lightsaber duels in the Star Wars franchise, but definitely that one's my favorite one, because it's the most deepest one. It's just the most meaningful one. So I think that's why Revenge of the Sith is at number 4, and why it's kind of ranked higher, relatively higher. All right, so now I'm getting into my top 3, and I want to make it very clear. These 3 movies that I'm about to name off, I all love equally, and if I could put them at number 1, I would, but I can't. Of course, they have to go in a slot. So I love them equally, but I have to put them in a slot. Number 3, I would put it at number 1, but number 3 is going to be Rogue One. Absolutely love Rogue One. It really showed the actual war side of the Galactic Civil War a lot more. It kind of explained that whole thing and how kind of the Imperial system works. I felt like a lot more, you know, the whole story of like the Death Star being built was awesome. I felt like we just got some really cool Imperial scenes. As you can tell, I'm a huge Imperial guy. I love the Empire. They're my favorite faction. So I generally, I love that movie. And hell, I loved how they showed that the rebellion was not as good as we thought they were. I mean, Cassian just wipes out a informant because he knew too much. So I thought that was awesome, because it kind of shows a dark side of the rebellion. You know, I thought that was a really good executed movie. I think Gareth Edwards did an amazing job. In fact, I think that Rogue One is hands down the best Star Wars movie that has came from since Disney bought Lucas. All right, next, coming in at number 2. Again, I would put it at number 1, but I can't. It's going to be The Empire Strikes Back. Really, I mean, if you've seen The Empire Strikes Back, you know why it's a Category 1 movie. It shows the training of Luke, you know, him just being, you know, a kid. on a desert planet, not really knowing really too much about the galaxy, to becoming this soldier, this leader, and becoming a Jedi. And really his journey, his path of becoming a Jedi Master. Of course, we got to see Yoda again on Dagobah. That was awesome. Of course, that was the movie that originated the character. The Hoth battle was awesome. I wish we would have gotten a longer sequence of that. Fortunately, we didn't, but a really cool battle. And then also, it shows the Empire's dominance. Really, it shows how serious the Empire was. That was the first kind of movie that shows how serious the Empire is. And another thing is, the good guys lost in the movie. You didn't, especially in that time, it was always like a happy ending, but the good guys lost. I mean, they lost. I mean, they lost Han Solo. Luke didn't really end up too good after that Vader duel. And of course, it was that iconic scene where we learn that Vader is Luke's father. Coming in at number 1 is going to be Return of the Jedi. Now, Return of the Jedi, I like because I felt like it was a perfect ending to the saga. I'm going to say it here. I felt like that should have been the ending to the Skywalker saga. I don't think that I think Disney, what they should have done is not pick up a sequel trilogy with the Skywalker saga. And what I would have done is just do anthology movies and like do their own standalone trilogies with new characters, and maybe have some cameos with like from the Skywalker saga. Incorporate Han or Leia or Luke. I thought the Death Star 2 thing was cool. I know some people don't like the whole idea of like a Death Star 2, but I thought it was cool because it was just like, the Empire just like, okay, well, we need to make another one to win this thing, which isn't the case, and I completely disagree with building a Death Star. I like Thrawn's idea better with building the TIE Defenders. Instead, just an army of those rather than a Death Star, and using the resources to something else to the Empire, because I felt like the Death Star was a horrible decision, and I felt like it was just unnecessary. I mean, why do you need a weapon to take out full planets, especially when they're building this weapon when it wasn't even during wartime, and the Death Star was kind of a huge focal point that fueled the war, a reason why people were rebelling, because they were starting to find out about it, and the damn thing was called a Death Star. I mean, of course it's going to freak out people of this huge military organization is making a planet killer. So I feel like the Death Star was just a terrible decision, but I think it was cool to see the Death Star 2 kind of take place again, because I felt like it kind of showed the Empire being a little bit desperate near the end of the war, because I think they saw that they were clearly starting to lose this war, and the rebellion was starting to kind of take shape and take dominance over the Empire, especially after the Empire lost Endor. I mean, that was basically where the war ended, but of course the war technically ended on Jakku. So that is my complete list of the whole franchise of movies. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, and I could probably do another top 10 or what was this, 11 movies? Yeah, it was 11 movies. I could probably do like another video like this. Maybe I could do like my top 10 favorite Clone Wars episodes, or top 10 favorite Rebels episodes, or top 10 books or something. And I definitely could do that if you guys wanted me to. So just let me know what you guys think, and also in the comments down below, put your favorite movies ranked from worst to best. I really would like to know what you guys dislike and what you guys like. That would be awesome to see. So yeah, guys, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.